Hello, welcome to this first edition of Freedom versus Slavery. I am your host, Rob Revere. I am the founder of Revere Radio Network, which is the worldwide home of free speech radio. That can be found at revereradionetwork.com. I am not in the studio right now. It's going to be about another 6 weeks before I get to make it into the studio. I'm still in the whole training process, but to give myself a little bit of experience at videography, editing, and being a producer of a television show on cable access, I've decided to go ahead and put together this first broadcast for you. You're not going to have very much of me here today. Number one, it's very hot under these lights. But I think the best is yet to come. The best is yet to come once I get into the studio. First of all, the goal of Freedom versus Slavery is to show you folks that there are bigger things to talk about. There are bigger issues than right versus left, conservative versus liberal, Democrat versus Republican. What you should be really concerned about, at least I am, and any American citizen who truly knows what it is to be an American and what it means to have rights and to be a sovereign citizen, should be concerned with freedom versus slavery instead. You see, the whole left versus right, that didn't come into existence till about 80 to 100 years ago. Before then, it was freedom versus slavery. Why did we revolt? Why did we break away from the monarchy of Great Britain and England? The reason, it's quite simple. Because had we not, then we'd be living under tyranny. We're not as free today as you may think we are. And the reasons why, the reason why we're not as free as we may think we are, it's quite simple. People have literally given up their rights and their freedoms and their liberties. They've surrendered them. Or they've been led to believe for so long that they really never had the right. The right was a privilege. See, remember that. A privilege can be taken away from you. A right cannot. Okay? So if you've lost your rights, you have voluntarily given them back. All throughout history, governments and the ruling elite, which has become smaller and smaller and smaller as the years have gone on, have used problem reaction solution to gain tighter control of the populations, thereby limiting the amount of freedoms and liberties that the citizens had. You know, Harriet Tubman said, "I freed 1,000 slaves, but I would have freed 1,000 more if they only knew they were slaves." And that's the truth. When you think about it, the serfs, serfdom, does that word ring a bell? It's slavery. But the serfs were slaves. But they didn't know it. They were happy. They were happy being slaves because they didn't know it. They didn't have chains and shackles. They weren't whipped and beaten. As a matter of fact, they ate great food. They were dressed up in jewels and of the highest and greatest fashion of the time by their masters. So, in their head, they didn't feel as if they were slaves. But in reality, that's exactly what they were. And the same thing applies today. problem, reaction, solution. Governments and leaders and the people, the ruling class, have used this problem, reaction, solution for eons and eons. They would create a problem. And I'll use a good example, 9/11. They create a problem like 9/11 so that they get a reaction from the people. What kind of reaction did the government get from the people after 9/11? The kind of reaction they got was, help me, keep me safe from those dirty, nasty Arab terrorists. Sure, no problem. Let's give you a solution. And what was the solution? The solution was the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act, which essentially makes all of us terrorists. Section 802 specifically states that any law, any law that's broken, anytime that you break a law that endangers human life, in other words, jaywalking, that's against the law, and it endangers life, it's considered terrorism. It's very, very vague, I know. But we've given up our liberties and we've given up our rights. I've seen free speech zones go up everywhere since 9/11. If you want to protest now, you have to go get a permit. You have to get a permit to protest. And then once you get your permit, you're set up in a cage. A free speech zone. Don't you find that sick? You know, I've been to quite a few protests in the past couple of years, and I've been out to Baywalk, and it's funny that the views of the protesters impede traffic. Sitting there, standing there, holding a sign impedes traffic. Those are the kinds of thoughts that people convey. They don't like Bill O'Reilly says, just shut up. Wave your flag and shut up. Well, I'm here to tell you that you need to have a voice. You need to learn how to think critically. You need to learn how to think for yourself. Question authority. Don't take and buy official stories that are nothing but lies. Nothing but lies. And you don't have to buy it. You don't have to take it. All you have to do is do your own research. During the next few months, as I bring these shows to you, I'm going to bring forth concrete evidence of a global conspiracy to bring forth the New World Order. The New World Order is one government over the entire world, one monetary system, one religion. It's being done incrementally right now. We have the European Union, which is formed. The Asian Union is forming, as well as the Pan-American Union, which, if you read government documents like I do, you'll see that the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission are looking for the Pan-American Union to be put in place by the year 2010. What is the Pan-American Union? Quite simple. No longer will there be a United States of America. If there's not a United States of America, then there's no Constitution, there's no Bill of Rights, and there's nothing to protect you any longer. Where will the United States be? Gone, defunct, a thing of the past. The borders between Canada and Mexico, between now and the year 2010, will be gone. We will be one super country, one big North American community, they're calling it. Anyway, that's about all I'm actually going to give you here today. I just want to introduce myself to you. I'm going to ask that you have an open mind and that you think for yourself and you don't buy the bull that's fed to you day in and day out by corporate mainstream media, the corporations, and the government. I want you to keep an open mind. I want you to take a look at what I've put together here for you. This is the secret evil of 9/11.
sick of this life. Not that you care. I'm not the only one with whom these feelings I share. Nobody understands quite why we're here. We're searching for answers that never appear. But maybe if I looked real hard, I'd see you trying to understand this life that we're all going through. Then when she said she was going to like wreck my car, I didn't know what to do.
Hold on to yourself, for this is gonna hurt like hell. Hold on to yourself. You know that only time will tell. What is it in me that refuses to believe this isn't easier than the real thing? My love, you know that you're my best friend. Oh, I'd do anything for you. My love, let nothing come between us. Love for you is strong and true. Am I in heaven here or am I at the crossroads? I am standing. So now you're sleeping peaceful. You lie awake and pray you'll be strong tomorrow, and we'll see another day, and we will praise it and love the light that
I
brings
remember
us.
getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. I said, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
If you're around there, won't you hear me? Know that we've never talked before.
Construction experts from across the country ran the complicated demolition work. By mid-December, the Department of Design and Construction had leveled World Trade Center buildings 4 and 5.
Hello? Oh, we're getting ready to pull building 6.
We have to be very careful how we demolish building 6. We were worried about the building 6 coming down and then damaging the slurry wall, so we wanted that particular building to fall within a certain area.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Caught in a landslide.
Because 7 wasn't hit by an aircraft, caught fire later in the afternoon and collapsed.
Open your eyes.
Geometrically imploded in on itself.
Now, here we're going to show you a videotape of the collapse itself.
Describe that.
Now we go to videotape the collapse of this building.
It's amazing.
Amazing, incredible, pick your word. For the third time today, it's reminiscent of those pictures we've all seen too much on television before, when a building was deliberately destroyed by well-placed dynamite to knock it down. A building was deliberately destroyed by well-placed dynamite to knock it down.
just killed a man, put a gun against his head, pulled my trigger.
How did they get explosives in a building when it takes days or weeks to do it? They decided to destroy it on 9/11. You can't do that. Even if they had hours to do it, the building was on fire on the 7th and 12th floors.
We got tanks. I saw the pockets of fire. We should be able to knock it down with 2 lines. Where you go that? 78th floor. We got tanks. I saw the pockets of fire. We got tanks. I saw the pockets of fire.
What did we do? We made it outside. We made it about a block.
We made it at least 2 blocks, and we started running floor by floor instead of popping out.
It was if they had detonated.
Detonated.
They were planned to take down a building. Boom, 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 boom.
All the way down.
It was if they had detonated.
Detonated.
They were planned to take down a building. Boom, 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 boom.
All the way down. I was watching it and running. Just ran up West Street. And then you just sort of this cloud of swinging down. Couldn't outrun it. West Street. Couldn't outrun it. So what'd you do? I jumped behind a battalion car. I hit under the car. It was waiting to die.
Also, we have the still images from Fox News, a video showing the puffs of smoke down the side of 7. Down 1 and 2 of the classic demolition charges going off, boom, 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 before the buildings collapse. Boom, 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 boom.
NBC's Pat Dawson is close to the scene of that attack. Pat? Pat,
Matt,
can you
if we are, yes, I can, Matt. If there is a war against terrorism that started, rather ongoing right now, it started here at about 8:45 this morning, as you described, a big hole in the skyline at the southern end, the southern tip of Manhattan Island, where the 2 World Trade Center towers have stood for the last 25 years, 110 stories high. They are no longer there. Just moments ago, I spoke to the chief of safety for the New York City Fire Department, who was obviously one of the first people here on the scene after those 2 planes were crashed into the side, we assume, of the World Trade Center towers, which used to be behind me over there. Chief Albert Turry told me that he was here just literally 10 or 15 minutes after the events that took place this morning, and that basically he received word of the possibility of a secondary device, that is another bomb going off. He tried to get his men out as quickly as he could, but he said that there was another explosion which took place, and then an hour after the first hit here, with the first crash that took place, he said, there was another explosion that took place in one of the towers here. So obviously, according to his theory, he thinks that there were actually devices that were planted in the building. One of the secondary devices he thinks that took place after the initial impact he thinks may have been on the plane that crashed into one of the towers. The second device he speculates was probably planted in the building. So that's what we have been told by Albert Turry, who is the chief of safety for the New York City Fire Department.
It's not immediately evident, and no one in the administration is talking about it openly, but the war on terrorism could produce major dividends for the United States.
Central Asia, Caspian regions, enormous and valuable oil and gas resources.
Crossing war-torn Afghanistan to Pakistan and eventually India.
September 11th and the extraordinary events, the tragic events of September 11th did create a new reality. As with every event, there are opportunities that arise from it.
Indeed, it may well be that Washington has already begun to take advantage of those opportunities.
America will have a continuing interest and presence in Central Asia of a kind that we could not have dreamed of before.
In the name of the war on terrorism.
A biological or chemical attack in as little as 45 minutes. We cannot wait for the final proof.
Efforts to acquire nuclear weapons.
Develop nuclear weapons.
Nuclear weapons.
The regime is seeking a nuclear bomb. And with fissile material, can build one within a year.
Iraq has never had the capability to do that. They didn't have it in the first Gulf War. They didn't have it in this war in Iraq. And they don't have it any way of getting it in the future.
Leaders will use worst-case assessments that point to nuclear weapons to generate political support because they know people fear nuclear weapons so much.
Biological and chemical agent to kill millions of people.
Chemical weapons, including VX and sarin, mustard gas.
To a massive and sudden horror.
Massive death and destruction. Death on a massive scale.
The danger to our country is grave.
Saddam Hussein cavorts with terrorists.
The ties with Al-Qaeda was just a scare tactic to exploit the trauma, the very real trauma that the American people have felt ever since 9/11, and to associate that trauma with Iraq. As you know from the polls, most Americans believe that Iraq had something to do with 9/11, and that was a very successful, very deliberate, and very unethical and immoral operation on the part of the PR people of this administration.
Hey, it's all tomorrow. Right now, come on, it's everything. Right now, it's a magic moment. Do it right here and now. It means everything.
Is there a chance that some of your civil liberties may slip while we guarantee the security of this country? Maybe. Maybe.
A satellite that can spot them down to a few feet. Electronic boundaries like those we impose on pets could be set up for these inmates, and surgically implanted electrodes could even shock them until they return to where they're supposed to be.
One thing we could implant would be a subliminal implant. In other words, basically messages being typed into the subconscious constantly. Do the right thing, do what's required of you, be a good citizen, don't disobey the law.
They have volunteered to be the first ever to have microchip identification devices implanted into their body.
After 9/11, I was really concerned with the security of my family.
I wouldn't mind having something planted permanently in my arm that would identify me. If we don't do something, people are going to stop flying. If they stop flying, and I don't go to the Giants games, it means the bastards have won.
It is our duty as loyal Americans to shut up and shut up publicly. We expect every American to support our military, and if they can't do that, to shut up. So you keep your mouth shut.
Like anyone would be, I am flattered by your fascination with me.
What is at stake
is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order.
There is a chance for the President of the United States to use this disaster to carry out what his father, a phrase his father used, I think, only once, and hasn't been used since, and that is a new world order.
Skull and Bones, the elite secret society whose members include some of the most powerful men of the 20th century.
Power and privilege that are cloaked in secrecy. It's not supposed to be the way we do things. We're supposed to do things out in the open in America.
There's also an obsession with death and its trappings.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society. It's so secret we can't talk about it. What does that mean for America?
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us? Not much, because it's a secret.
Hijackers were instruments of evil who died in vain. Behind them is a cult of evil which seeks to harm the innocent and thrives on human suffering. Theirs is the worst kind of cruelty. The cruelty that is fed, not weakened, by tears. Theirs is the worst kind of violence. Pure malice while daring to claim the authority of God. We cannot fully understand the designs and power of evil. It is enough to know that evil, like goodness, exists. And in the terrorist, evil has found a willing servant. Evil has found a willing servant.
Evil has found a willing servant.
He received word of the possibility of a secondary device, that is another bomb going off. He tried to get his men out as quickly as he could. He thinks that there were actually devices that were planted in the building.
Tell us what's happening out there.
We just witnessed some kind of secondary follow-up explosion on the World Trade Center #2, the wall.
Secondary. If Jim Smith is with us still in Chopper 2, Jim, are you there?
What? Michael, we just saw that as well. The second tower, the only one that was standing, tower #1, just we saw some kind of explosion, a lot of smoke come out of the top of the tower, and then it collapsed down onto the streets below.